right. Well, good morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. This is episode 314. We're in First Chronicles chapter 22, and I entitled this David's Preparation for Building the Temple and Solomon's Instructions. And as with all of First Chronicles, there's a lot of just interesting material in this chapter that adds to what we already know from the book of Kings. So let's see what we have here beginning at verse 1. Then David said, "This is the house of the Lord God. This is the altar of the burnt offering for Israel." And David commanded to gather together the strangers. And we want to note here that he does not hire Israelis to do this backbreaking work. All right. It's those that are not Israelis that he's going to hire or put to task here in the preparation of the temple. It said, "And David commanded to gather together the strangers that were in the land of Israel, and he set masons to hew out wrought stones to build the house of God. And David prepared iron in abundance for the nails of the doors of the gates, and for the joinings, and brass in abundance without weight, and cedar trees in abundance for the Zidonians. And they of Tyre brought much cedar wood to David." And then he's gathering all of this. Now we're going to learn more, but we have this record of him talking to Solomon, and this is not in Kings. All right, in Kings, Solomon is attributed for all of this. I mean, there's a big section here, but not in Chronicles. In Chronicles, David is the primary one behind the temple. Now Solomon is going to build it, that's for sure, but it would not have existed, according to the chronicler, if it wasn't for the labors of David. And when we get down here to verse 12, it's interesting because I got to jump ahead here just for a minute. We'll get to it. But, we read Solomon. He says, "I'm young, I'm a child, I need wisdom as I govern the land." In First Chronicles, it's David that asks first that Solomon is a wise man. And that you could say, if all you had was First Chronicles, that it was an answer to David's prayer that Solomon was so wise, and it was not Solomon's prayer in and of itself. I mean, when you read this, it's fascinating material, isn't it? So let's just keep pressing on here, because now he's going to turn his attention to Solomon, which is I think I figured that he's in his early 20s here. So he's not a child. But as far as the ability to govern a nation, take on that responsibility, he's not prepared for it because of his youth. But I'd say he's in his early 20s here when this happens. So David is about ready to die. He's coming near the end of his life. And he's giving these words of direction to his son Solomon, beginning in verse 5. "And David said, 'Solomon, my son, is young and tender, and the house that he is to build for the Lord must be exceeding magnifical, of fame and of glory throughout all countries,' which it was. I think it was one of the seven wonders of the world. The temple was covered with gold. So when the sun shone, it would have been just like a jewel there there in Jerusalem, which is already on a mountain. I mean, it would have been just an amazing thing to see. 'I will therefore now make preparation for it.' So David prepared abundantly before his death. And he called for Solomon his son and charged him to build a house for the Lord God of Israel." You see, this is all at David's direction. That's the point I want to make, because this is what happened. This is it just speaks of how favorable God's face shines upon David, all right, which we need to gather in light of how poorly he's presented earlier in the Bible, all right? "And David said to Solomon, 'My son, as for me, it was in my mind to build an house under the name of the Lord my God. But the word of the Lord came to me, saying,'" and here's why he couldn't, "'Thou hast shed blood abundantly and hast made great wars. Thou shalt not build an house unto my name, because thou hast shed much blood upon the earth in my sight.'" That is, the reason you're not going to build this, David, is because you are a warrior. That is fundamentally what he is. He's not fundamentally a songwriter. He's not fundamentally a harpist. He's not even fundamentally the king. I mean, he is a king, but fundamentally, in his heart of hearts, who David is a warrior. He is a fighter. All right. That's how you want to see David. And so it would be like a general that's being made the king. All right. It's like a general that also plays the harp. It's like being a general, or when I speak of a general, sometimes you think about those guys that sit behind a desk. This guy is on the battlefield, okay? Um, so this is who he is, and this is why God prohibits him from building the temple. And then it says this in verse 9. He says, "Behold, a son shall be born to thee, who shall be a man of rest." And that's what we find out about Solomon. He's not a man of war. Solomon is not. He's a man of rest. "And I will give him rest from all his enemies round about, for his name shall be Solomon, and I will give peace and quietness unto Israel in his days." And this is the prophecy about what's going to happen with Solomon, and which tells me this is God's design. So Solomon could have done this without with all the wives and without all the idols that his wives brought in, and then just filling Israel and Judah with idols. All right, because God says this is the man, and there's going to be rest. And part of the way you get rest in these days, in a very practical way, is marry into other kingdoms. So you're related to a king, so you're not going to go to war with him. That idea. But with that, when Solomon did that, he did this all to excess, and then he brings in idols with it. And that excess is what God prohibits. All right. And there's going to be peace. In verse 10, "And he shall build a house for my name, and he shall be my son, and I will be his father." And remember, this goes back to the Davidic covenant. We have the near fulfillment and the far fulfillment, and Solomon is a type of Christ, and God speaking here of being his father. He said, "He shall be my son, I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever." This has already been stated, and so he's just talking about how Solomon in the building of the temple and this kingdom that's going to endure forever is an Old Testament type of the kingdom of Christ that is coming. All right. And then it says this in verse 11. "Now, my son, the Lord be with thee, and prosper thou, and build the house of the Lord thy God, as he has said to thee." Okay, and here it is, verse 12. This is fascinating. He says, "Only the Lord give thee wisdom and understanding." You see, David is praying this. The Lord give you wisdom and understanding. We know Solomon prays it for himself. He says, "I'm but a child." And then God gives him wisdom and understanding. But here we see chronologically, before Solomon does that, his dad, before he dies, prays that for his son. All right. So the dad prays for it, and then Solomon prays for it, which is interesting because after hearing your dad say that, and now you're in the driver's seat, you're now the king, you can imagine how that resonated within the mind of Solomon, and how after his dad says, "I'm praying for this," how Solomon saw the wisdom of it and prayed for it himself. All right. It's fascinating when you begin to tie it all together, don't you think? He said, "Only the Lord give thee wisdom and understanding, and give thee charge concerning Israel, that thou mayest keep the law of the Lord thy God." All right, which is what you're supposed to do as the king. I just had this debate with a guy online, not a debate. I mean, I like him, but I think he's wrong. But it all came down to what's the responsibility of leadership. Well, when you look at Lex Rex, written by Samuel Rutherford, when it says Lex Rex, where law is king, or not Rex Lex, where the king is the law. If the law is the king, then what qualifies a good leader is his adherence to the law. All right, that's the way the Protestant guys argued it, or old reformers, and that's how me as a Baptist argues it. If you want to argue like Mennonites and the Amish did, okay, the pacifist tradition of Anabaptist tradition, they argued that the man has to be a morally good man. That's not what Rutherford ever argued. He said he can't find that anywhere, that you're a morally good man before you can lead a nation. But what you have to do is you have to keep the law. And so our law here in the United States is the Constitution. Is the president keeping the Constitution? One of those things in the Constitution is to defend and protect the homeland. All right, things like that. I mean, he's the commander-in-chief of the army. Is he protecting us as Americans? Is President Trump doing that? And I argue yes. So, and I'm not saying he's any less moral than anybody else, is the point. Everybody's happy to stand on their tippy toes and point over there because they're in in the public sphere. And no, the president isn't a pastor, okay? He meets the qualifications of a pastor. That's not what he got called for. God placed him there to lead America. That's why he's there. And as you've heard me say countless times, all of us are broken vessels. We're all broken vessels. But we're all in a position to judge somebody else. I can't wait. I mean, I'm not going to do it because Easter's coming, but you got to stay with me for next Saturday the next after Easter, when it comes to what it says about judging one another there in James chapter 4. Powerful stuff. Anyway, I got off track there, but the point is he is charging Solomon, and he's going to keep the law of God. That's what his job is, and he doesn't. That's the problem, because he multiplies to himself wives, all right, and brings in idolatry. So anyway, but that is his principal reason for leading, to keep the law. Verse 13, then shalt thou prosper if thou take heed to fulfill the statutes and judgments which the Lord charged Moses with concerning Israel. Be strong and of good courage, dread not, nor be dismayed. That is, he said, just dive into it, but do those things that we have learned from Moses, or that which he's talking about, the law that came off of Sinai. Verse 14, now behold, in my trouble I have prepared for the house of the Lord. And I had to look that up, because what kind of trouble is this? And most of the guys just think that this trouble has to deal with the fact that as a warrior, he's been in battles, he's been in wars. It costs a lot to go to war, and the treasury was not as full as it could have been without that. All right, and so we have a little bit of self-reflection here on the part of David, saying, now behold, in my trouble I have prepared the house of the Lord. I have been troubled with my wars and the battles that have gone forth. All right, and but under those circumstances, nevertheless, he says, I have prepared for the house of the Lord 100,000 talents of gold, 1,000 talents, 1,000 talents of silver, and brass and iron without weight. For it is in abundance. Timber also and stone have I prepared, that thou mayest add thereto. And nobody's exactly sure how much it weighs, how much it is. All we know is this number is astronomical. Basically, it's enough to say this, that he's prepared enough of gold and silver and iron and stone and wood. He's got everything necessary to get it done. That's the point. All right. That these are huge numbers, and he's in spite of the trouble, that he's provided everything that Solomon is going to need to finish the work. That's what we're looking at here. Verse 15, moreover, there are workmen with thee in abundance, hewers and workers of stone and timber, and all manner of cunning men of every manner of work. So he's got his crew together. He's got the men that can actually build, the builders, the craftsmen. They're all there. Of the gold and silver, the brass, the iron, there's no number. Arise therefore and be doing, and the Lord be with thee. That is, when you start it, you have all the parts. All right. It's like a gigantic, multi-billion-dollar Lego set, and everything is in the box. All the gold, all the silver. All right. Everything you need, all the timber, all the stone. And in the box are also everybody you need to build it. That is, I am giving you, Solomon, the whole package. That's what we're reading here. So you just you take the natural resources that I've accumulated and all the workmen together, and you're going to be successful in accomplishing this task that God has placed on you, because I've given you everything, so to speak, on a gold platter. That's what David is saying here. It said, and then it says this, he goes on. Verse 17, David also commanded all the princes of Israel to help Solomon his son. So now you got all of the bigwigs, the princes of Israel. He's saying now, because he's near death here, he says, now you get behind Solomon in this effort. And it's going to be easy to get behind Solomon. And the reason is it's because he is a man of rest. He is a man of peace. And not that there's not trouble, but he is such a wise governor, a wise king, that he makes everybody around him rich. I mean, there's just a principle of that because he knows how to govern a land, and he is astronomically rich. Everyone around him is going to be astronomically rich. I mean, it's going to talk about that silver ends up being nothing because there's so much gold during the time of Solomon. I mean, people come from all over just to see how happy the Israeli people are for the most part. I mean, he's governing under the reign of Solomon. So David also commanded all the princes of Israel to help Solomon and his sons, saying, "Is not the Lord your God with you? Is not the Lord with us? And hath he not given you rest on every side?" That is under the reign of Solomon. "For he hath given the inhabitants of the land into mine hand, and the land is subdued before the Lord and before his people." That is, Solomon's going to exercise this. I mean, I have subdued the land through military conquest. Right now we're at peace. All right. And now, having established peace in the land, Solomon is just going to inherit this, and he's going to multiply this because of the military labors that have happened. Here's the macro picture of this, folks. It's tough because here's what you get. Nobody wants to go to war, but the only way you get peace against your enemy is you to defeat them. And people don't understand that. The Bible is full of this, but it's so grounded. It's grounded in us too, as Americans. We are an American people. We came out of the Reformation as a people coming here. But once we got established, people got established here, Britain does not want to let us go. And then they begin to break their own laws and impose their will on us as a people. But they violate their own laws because they considered us less. We're over here, right, just cutting our way out of the wilderness as our American forefathers did. And then, I mean, all the things that happened that led up to the revolution. And then we had to fight our way out of that, right? And then there's peace. And then when there's peace and the fighting stops, when there's peace, things get soft. Things get soft when you're not in the fight. That's what happens. It happens in governments. It happens in churches. If the church is not in the fight for the gospel's sake, that is got this spirit of standing against wrong and supporting what is right, it will get soft. Nations get soft. Churches get soft. And you and I get soft if we just decide all we're going to do is sit in our lazy boy chair and let things unfold without staying in the fight. We get soft. And then we make decisions based on that, which would not be in our best interest. That's what happens. And because Solomon here, during the reign of Solomon, there isn't anybody that wanted to love to live during that time, except he's got Rehoboam, his spoilt son, and the guys that he comes up with, who are all raised as rich kids, extremely rich kids, powerful rich kids, who don't know how to lead a nation, and it caused the division of the country into the north and the south under Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And then you have the confusion that takes place all the way until the deportations of Samaria and Babylon because of the wealth and the prosperity of Solomon. Because there's no fighting. You say, well, then we shouldn't have fighting. I'm talking about in this fighting, it's actually military fighting, trying to maintain your property, okay, your boundaries of your country, and expanding them against those that hate you. Well, the same thing is true here for us in a spiritual way. The devil hates you, the world hates you. They want you to be undone. You have to stay in the fight against them, because if you don't, it'll find a way into your heart, and you'll become a soft Christian. We call backslidden or carnal. And then we're going to look like Laodicea, like we're lukewarm, neither hot nor cold. God says, I'd rather you were hot or cold, or I'll spew you out of my mouth. All right? We see this on a macro level here through the unfolding of the Old Testament, but it's true of us every day in our Christian life. We have to fight we have to draw nigh to God, and he'll draw nigh to us. We have to cleanse our hands, ye sinners. We have to resist the devil. All right? All of these things have to happen every day. All right, to stay in the fight, the spiritual fight of our souls for ourselves, our wives, and our kids, and for our churches. So he says here, is not the Lord your God with you, and hath he not given you rest on every side? For he hath given the inhabitants of the land into mine hand, and the land is subdued before the Lord and before his people. That is because because I am a man of blood, it sets this all up for you. They might not have appreciated it then because when he's going through it all, but in the end, I mean, in the middle, but at the end, you can see everything that David did to make this work. Verse 19. Now set your heart and your soul to seek the Lord your God. Just going back to the law of Moses and what we're supposed to be doing here. Keep your eyes focused on the right thing. Arise therefore and build ye the sanctuary of the Lord God, to bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord and the holy vessels of God into the house that is to be built to the name of the Lord. That is everything that's in Gibeah and the tent that's got the ark. You can bring it all together again, and it will be in the temple. All right. That is our morning devotions here on, let's see, what do I got? March 30th, one more day for the month of March. It's going to be a nicer day. It's supposed to be nicer tomorrow, but I'm glad March is behind us. One crazy month. All right. Let's see. Tomorrow, just a reminder, tomorrow at 6 o'clock is our canonicity class at Peter Van Cleek Ministries on YouTube, 6 o'clock. I try to get it up a little early. So welcome everyone to join there. I think this is our fifth lecture, and it's been going well by the grace of God. And everyone's invited to just join in online for those that don't live here in the Blue Ridge, close to Dougspur. Be in prayer for my pastor. His wife, I'm not going to give you their names. His wife had a heart attack. She's at one of the big hospitals here in the area. And I just texted him this morning. He said she wants to go home. She's doing better. But, after a heart attack, you should just sit still just for a minute, let the doctors take a good look at you, right? Make sure before they send you home, all right? And that's where they are right now. So they're checking on some tests that they made, but Lord willing, to be able to get home soon. But we don't want that to happen too quick. We want to make sure everything's checked, right? All right, but you can be in prayer for my pastor here at Calvary Bible Church in Dougspur, and it's his wife. His wife is the one that had the heart attack. All right. Okay. Well, that's it. The Lord bless you. You have a great day, and Lord willing, I'll see everybody tomorrow. Okay. We'll see you. Bye.